Welcome back to the ultimate deep dive. Picture this, the biggest music night on the planet, millions of eyes watching, and a legendary red carpet waiting. But what if the world's biggest pop phenomenon decided to simply walk away? Rumors are exploding across the global fan base about whether BTS could actually reject the 2027 Grammy Awards. Is this a bold statement against industry politics, a masterclass in artistic freedom, or something much deeper hidden within each member's unique journey? Before we unravel the real truth behind every single member's stance, ask yourself, can history's greatest group rewrite the rules of global music entirely on their own terms? Number 7. RM, the leader's silent strike against Western gatekeepers. When you look at Kim Namjoon, known to the world as RM, you are not merely looking at the charismatic leader and lyrical architect of BTS. You are gazing into the heart of a philosopher-artist who has spent over a decade meticulously questioning, reevaluating, and dismantling what it truly means to be a non-Western global icon navigating the murky, often treacherous waters of the global music industry. To fully comprehend why deep-rooted industry reports and fan whispers suggest that RM might be the central mastermind advocating for BTS to politely step away or completely bypass the 2027 Grammy Awards submission process, we must journey back through the high-stakes history of BTS's agonizing relationship with the Recording Academy. Cast your mind back to 2019 when a young, wide-eyed RM stood on the Grammy stage as a presenter and uttered those legendary words that sent shockwaves through the fandom, "We will be back." At that time, the Grammys represented the ultimate peak of global recognition, the holy grail that would finally prove to the world that 7 young men from South Korea had conquered the highest mountain in music. But what followed over the next several years transformed that bright dream into a sobering masterclass on institutional bias, commercial exploitation, and systemic gatekeeping. By 2021, when Dynamite shattered global streaming records and ruled the Billboard charts for weeks, the Recording Academy plastered BTS's faces across every promotional billboard and television teaser to drive up plummeting broadcast ratings, using the unprecedented power of ARMY to fuel their digital engagement. Yet when the moment of truth arrived, BTS was relegated to a pre-telecast announcement and passed over, leaving millions of viewers feeling that the group was used as visual clickbait for an institution that had no real intention of honoring their craft. The cycle repeated in 2022 with the breathtaking James Bond-inspired live performance of Butter in Las Vegas, a jaw-dropping spectacle that earned a standing ovation from the entire room of Western A-listers, only for BTS to be denied the top prize once again. Across multiple nomination cycles, including nods for My Universe with Coldplay and Yet to Come, the pattern became painfully transparent to a leader as intellectually sharp and emotionally perceptive as Namjoon. RM watched as the Recording Academy repeatedly compartmentalized Asian creators into side categories while relying on their global star power to maintain relevance among younger demographics. This toxic cycle hit a profound breaking point in Namjoon's personal reflection, especially during the emotional window preceding his military enlistment in December 2023 and his subsequent release in mid-2025. Through his acclaimed solo projects, specifically the deeply reflective Indigo in 2022 and the radically experimental, critically lauded Right Place, Wrong Person released while he was serving in 2024, RM signaled a massive internal paradigm shift. He collaborated not with mainstream chart chasers for cheap radio play, but with soul legends like Erykah Badu, Anderson .Paak, and visionary indie filmmakers, crafting raw, unvarnished art that explored the claustrophobia of global fame, identity crisis, and the illusion of Western validation. In candid interviews and personal diary-like lyrics, RM confessed the overwhelming fatigue of being treated as a cultural diplomat or a commercial machine, openly questioning why an artist from Seoul should continuously seek approval from an outdated Western committee sitting in Los Angeles. He famously reflected on how the relentless chase for Western trophies often dilutes the raw, authentic essence of what made BTS a global phenomenon in the first place. Their uncompromising connection to human emotion and Korean heritage. By the time all 7 members completed their military duties in 2025 and began laying the groundwork for their historic 2026 and 2027 comeback era, including a monumental world tour slated to crush all existing attendance records, RM's philosophical stance hardened into absolute clarity. Insiders privy to big hit music and HYBE's strategic planning revealed that during high-level creative discussions regarding the 2027 Grammy cycle, RM voiced a perspective that shocked traditional executives. Why should BTS waste valuable months tailoring campaigns, navigating political press circuits, and subjecting their triumphant return to an academy that historically treats them as an afterthought? Namjoon recognized that BTS had long outgrown the need for a gold-plated trophy to validate their legacy. Their true power lies in the unbreakable, direct bond with millions of fans across every continent, a cultural impact far greater than any award show could ever measure. Choosing not to play the Grammy game in 2027 isn't an act of defeat or bitter resentment, but rather an unprecedented flex of ultimate artistic autonomy, showing the world that BTS operates in a league entirely of their own creation. They don't need the Grammys to prove they're the biggest group on earth, because history has already recorded their name in gold across stadium scoreboards worldwide. RM's visionary stance poses a thrilling, uncomfortable challenge to the entire global music infrastructure. If the world's biggest group decides they no longer need the Grammys, who actually loses more in the end? As we stand on the precipice of BTS's grandest chapter yet, RM's quiet strike proves that real leadership isn't about chasing someone else's trophy, but having the courage to build your own throne on your own terms. Number 6. Jin, the eldest's shocking stand against Hollywood clout. To understand how Jin, the eldest brother and emotional anchor of BTS, fits into this extraordinary historic potential rejection of the 2027 Grammy Awards, you have to look closely at the extraordinary journey he undertook as the vanguard of the group's military era. On June 12, 2024, when Jin stepped out of the 5th Infantry Division boot camp in Yeoncheon after serving dutifully as an assistant drill instructor carrying the rank of sergeant and the unwavering devotion of millions watching across the globe, he wasn't just completing a mandatory civic duty, he was stepping into a completely new reality where time, authenticity, and personal fulfillment took total precedence over corporate award shows and Western validation. Remember that heartwarming, deeply emotional moment at the 2024 BTS Festa, merely 24 hours after his official military discharge, when Jin requested a special hug event for 1,000 fans at Jeonsil Arena, standing on his feet for hours just to physically embrace and connect with the people who had waited through every freezing cold night of his enlistment. That iconic moment revealed everything you need to know about Jin's core philosophy. Real, meaningful impact is measured in genuine human connection, warmth, and mutual respect, not cold metal statues awarded by an out-of-touch voting committee in Los Angeles. Shortly after his return, Jin represented South Korea on the ultimate international stage as an official torchbearer for the 2024 Paris Summer Olympics, walking through massive crowds of thousands chanting his name near the iconic Louvre Museum in France. He then went on to release his bright, emotionally resonant debut solo album, Happy, in November 2024, featuring smash hits like Running Wild and I'll Be There, alongside starring in his hit variety web series, Run Jin, and appearing on high-profile global shows like The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that his individual charm, artistic sincerity, and global star power could command pop culture entirely on his own terms, without relying on traditional Western industry gatekeepers or radio payola. When the remaining members, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, all completed their military service by mid-2025, officially reuniting the full septet for the most anticipated group comeback in modern music history, Jin was the one who held the unique emotional perspective of someone who had been away the longest and truly understood the finite, extraordinarily precious time they had together as seven. As BTS entered 2026 with an earth-shattering new studio album and launched a record-shattering global stadium tour that filled arenas from Seoul to Los Angeles, Tokyo to London, and Sao Paulo to Paris, industry insiders began whispering about the group's long-term strategy for the 2027 award season, specifically regarding the Recording Academy and the Grammy Awards. Sources close to Big Hit Music and HYB revealed that Jin was surprisingly vocal during high-level strategic group meetings, offering a refreshingly honest, grounded, and unapologetic perspective that deeply resonated with his younger brothers. Why should BTS sacrifice their extraordinarily valuable reunion time, exhaust their physical energy, and endure grueling international travel schedules during a high-stakes world tour just to attend a ceremony that had repeatedly used their image for social media clicks, broadcast ratings, and promotional teasers while snubbing their actual musical craft year after year? Jin remembered all too clearly how the Grammys had treated them in past cycles, inviting them as high-profile performers to drive up declining youth viewership figures, placing their award category announcements in the untelevised pre-show ceremony, and constantly prioritizing traditional Western radio mainstays, despite BTS consistently dominating global album sales, physical consumption, box office numbers, and stadium ticket sales across every continent. For Jin, who reflected deeply on life and mortality during his rigorous time in uniform, the idea of continually chasing validation from a Western committee in 2027 felt entirely obsolete and fundamentally misaligned with what BTS represents. He forcefully argued that the group's post-military era should be dedicated 100% to the millions of loyal fans who stood by them during their lengthy hiatus, rather than wasting precious weeks catering to American music executives who only reach out when they need social media traffic. When you examine Jin's unbelievable transformation from a university student recruited on the street to a world-renowned pop icon, humanitarian, and cultural ambassador, his refusal to participate in the Grammy rat race stands as the ultimate flex of self-worth and emotional maturity. He understands that BTS's enduring legacy isn't written on a gold trophy sitting on a shelf in California. It was written with sweat, tears, endless late-night practice sessions, and the unbreakable bond between seven brothers and millions of ARMY worldwide. By standing firmly alongside RM, Jin sends a clear message across the entertainment world. BTS is no longer interested in playing by rules they didn't write, because they have built a global empire of their own, where true respect and love mean far more than any Hollywood award show could ever offer. Number 5. Suga, the producer's brutal truth against the Western machinery. When you think of Min Yoongi, whether he is standing before you as the razor-sharp rapper Suga of BTS or the brilliantly unhinged, rebellious underground conqueror known globally as August D, you are looking at a man who has built his entire extraordinary career on burning down the polished, superficial facades of the global music industry. To truly grasp why Suga might be the most lethal, uncompromising advocate for BTS completely rejecting the 2027 Grammy Awards, we have to look at the deeply personal, intensely reflective journey he just completed. Fast forward to his highly anticipated return to civilian life on June 21, 2025. Unlike the regular active-duty soldiers, Suga's grueling 21-month tenure as a social service agent, a path necessitated by a severe, long-standing shoulder injury from his pre-debut delivery boy days that required extensive surgery, gave him a completely unique, profoundly quiet and introspective vantage point away from the blinding flashbulbs of the paparazzi and the chaotic, deafening noise of global superstardom. During those quiet months of public service in Seoul, working directly with regular citizens and fading into the background of everyday Korean society, Yoongi had the profound opportunity to observe the world without the distorting filter of immense fame, reflecting deeply on what actually matters when the massive stadium lights finally shut off and the screaming crowds go home. To understand his absolute disdain for artificial industry validation, you have to rewind to the breathtaking climax of his pre-enlistment solo era, the monumental D-Day World Tour in 2023, and its subsequent cinematic release that shattered global box office records. Night after night, he stood on stages across the globe, pouring out a visceral, emotionally devastating performance that stripped away every single ounce of traditional K-pop polish. He drank whiskey on stage, smashed his guitar to splinters, screamed through the raw pain of his past traumas, and delivered unfiltered, pure art that Western academies typically reserve their highest praises for when it comes from traditional white rock stars, yet suspiciously and consistently ignore when it originates from a Korean hip-hop prodigy. Suga is, at his absolute core, a master producer, a meticulous musical architect, and an unyielding truth-teller. He doesn't just write catchy pop lyrics, he crafts entire sonic universes that delve into mental health, societal pressure, the crushing weight of capitalism, and the harrowing journey of self-acceptance. For years, he watched with a sharp analytical eye as the Recording Academy repeatedly failed to recognize the sheer genius of BTS's self-produced, deeply profound discography. He witnessed firsthand how the Grammys completely ignored magnum opuses like Map of the Soul 7, Love Yourself Tear, and B.E. in the major Album of the Year categories for their token, almost insulting nominations in the Pop Duo Performance categories for their English-language singles like Dynamite and Butter. As a globally respected producer who has collaborated behind the boards with heavyweights like Coldplay, Halsey, Juice WRLD, Psy, and IU, Suga knows exactly how the underlying, often dirty machinery of the Western music industry operates. He knows all about the intense backroom lobbying, the exclusive closed-door networking parties, and the millions of dollars spent by massive American labels on desperate for-your-consideration campaigns just to get a handful of out-of-touch, aging voters to blindly press a button on a ballot. As BTS regroups in this current 2026 landscape, dominating the world once again with their historic OT7 reunion tour that is currently breaking every known box office and stadium attendance record from North America to Europe, insider reports suggest that Suga is the most pragmatic, ruthlessly logical, and fiercely protective voice in the HYBE boardroom when the topic of the 2027 Grammys arises. Why, he argues passionately during these closed-door strategy meetings, should BTS bow down to a Western institution that has consistently proven it lacks the cultural literacy, the linguistic effort, and the basic respect to understand their art? Why should they submit their incredibly deeply personal Korean-language comeback album, a monumental project that represents their blood, sweat, and tears after years of painful separation and individual growth, to an academy that historically views them through the reductive, patronizing lens of a teenage boy band phenomenon, rather than acknowledging them as serious, world-class, generation-defining musicians? Yoongi remembers the freezing cold nights in Daegu, selling his underground beats for pennies just to buy a bowl of noodles, the shattered shoulder from a motorcycle accident he desperately hid from his company out of fear of being dropped,
The absolute refusal of the mainstream Korean hip-hop scene to accept him as a real rapper because he chose the idol path, and the eventual undeniable global dominance that forced the entire world to learn his name and sing his intricate rap verses in his native tongue. Suga has already conquered every conceivable Billboard chart, broken every stadium attendance record from SoFi to Wembley, and etched his legacy in permanent stone. A Grammy trophy in Suga's eyes is nothing more than a hollow, meaningless piece of metal compared to the roaring, earth-shaking chorus of 80,000 armies singing Spring Day or Daechiwata back to him in perfect unison. If RM provides the philosophical and intellectual reasoning for rejecting the Grammys, and Jin provides the emotional, fan-centric reasoning for rejecting the Grammys, then Suga provides the brutal, uncompromising artistic truth. True art does not need permission to exist, and it certainly does not need a trophy from a local American award show to be validated as legendary. This potential industry-shaking boycott of the 2027 Grammys isn't just a clever PR stunt or a petty reaction to past snubs. For Suga, it is the ultimate glorious culmination of his lifelong war against elitist industry gatekeepers. It is his definitive way of saying to the Western establishment, "We gave you the chance to recognize history when it was standing right in front of you, and you arrogantly missed it. Now history belongs exclusively to us and the people who actually listen." Imagine the absolute unparalleled power move of releasing the most critically acclaimed, culturally significant album of the decade, shattering every streaming record on Spotify and Apple Music in a matter of hours, triggering a global cultural event, and then simply refusing to submit a single track to the Recording Academy's portal. It would ruthlessly expose the Grammys for exactly what they have become, an antiquated, fading popularity contest desperate for BTS's massive social media engagement, red carpet hype, and television viewership, rather than the ultimate arbiter of musical excellence. Suga knows that by actively withholding their presence and their art, BTS completely strips the Grammys of their global relevance, turning the tables so thoroughly that the institution is left begging for the very artists they once marginalized and used for clout. As the whispers of this monumental 2027 rejection grow louder across the globe, sending shockwaves through the very foundations of the global music industry and sparking fierce debates among critics and fans alike, you have to ask yourself, isn't this massive middle finger to the establishment exactly the kind of revolutionary, anti-system, radically authentic move that August D has been fiercely rapping about since the very beginning of his journey?
Number 4. J-Hope, the stage master's ultimate refusal to perform for Hollywood clout. When you turn your attention to Jungkook, known to millions across the globe as J-Hope, you aren't just looking at the sunshine-filled main dancer and high-octane rapper of BTS. You're looking at the group's relentless dance captain, performance director, and emotional battery, a man who has dedicated every single fiber of his muscle memory to reaching absolute live stage perfection. To understand why J-Hope's personal perspective plays such a pivotal, breathtaking role in BTS potentially rejecting the 2027 Grammy Awards, we have to travel back to October 17, 2024, the unforgettable day when Hoseok officially completed his mandatory military service as an elite assistant drill instructor at the 36th Infantry Division in Wonju. Walking out of the military base gates with a sharp salute, an infectious, bright smile, and the unwavering discipline of a seasoned military leader, J-Hope wasn't just returning to civilian life, he was returning with a crystal-clear realization of how precious every single second on stage truly is. Before his enlistment, J-Hope made history as the very first South Korean artist to headline a major American music festival at Lollapalooza in Chicago back in 2022, affectionately dubbed Hobie-Palooza by over 100,000 screaming festival-goers who witnessed a masterclass in solo stage presence, raw hip-hop energy, and uncompromising stamina.
He followed that up with his groundbreaking docuseries and album project, Hope on the Street Volume 1, in early 2024, paying homage to his roots in street dance and underground popping crews like Neuron in Gwangju, long before global fame ever touched his life. For Hoseok, stage performance is not a commercial gimmick or a casual routine. It is a sacred, deeply spiritual act of communication where every drop of sweat, every breath, and every micro-movement carries profound meaning. This brings us to the agonizing core of J-Hope's personal history with the Recording Academy and the Grammy Awards. Cast your mind back to the 64th Annual Grammy Awards in Las Vegas in April 2022. That night, BTS delivered what is widely considered one of the most iconic, high-stakes live TV performances in award show history, a slick, James Bond-inspired heist version of Butter. The world watched in awe as the members navigated laser beams, card tricks, and complex suit jacket choreography in real time on live television. But true fans remember the heart-stopping moment during the performance when J-Hope, sliding down the elevated stair steps, slightly missed his footing and almost suffered a dangerous fall. In less than a fraction of a second, with the sheer muscle memory of a true dance legend, Hoseok caught himself mid-air, masked the stumble with smooth charisma, and seamlessly rejoined the formation without skipping a single beat. The entire room of Western A-listers erupted into a standing ovation, recognizing that they had just witnessed an absolute perfectionist at work. Yet despite BTS delivering the undisputed performance of the night that single-handedly saved the broadcast's social media traction, the Recording Academy once again passed them over when the envelope was opened. As the group's performance commander, J-Hope knows better than anyone the insane physical toll, mental exhaustion, and weeks of grueling rehearsals required to craft a single 4-minute Grammy performance. He knows the frustration of dealing with Western camera directors who constantly miss key choreography angles, lighting rigs that fail to highlight their intricate movements, and technical teams that treat K-pop choreography as a novelty act rather than elite athletic artistry. Fast forward to the present 2026 landscape, BTS is in the middle of their jaw-dropping, history-making OT7 reunion tour, packing out massive stadiums across the planet night after night, performing 3-hour legendary sets for 80,000 roaring armies who sing every single word in Korean from start to finish. In high-level strategic discussions regarding the upcoming 2027 Grammy cycle, insiders revealed that J-Hope held a deeply passionate stance alongside RM, Jin, and Suga. Why should BTS halt their momentum, strain their bodies, and endure months of high-stress preparations for a 4-minute television segment in Los Angeles just to perform in front of a polite, seated crowd of corporate executives, music industry lobbyists, and casual celebrities sitting on their phones? Why trade the genuine, earth-shaking love of thousands of devoted fans in a sold-out stadium for a high-strung Western TV set that treats them as promotional clickbait? Hoseok's journey from the underground dance basements of Gwangju to the highest pinnacles of global pop stardom has taught him that real stage glory isn't validated by an American award committee's golden envelope, but by the electrical energy exchanged between an artist and an audience that truly understands the blood, sweat, and tears behind every move. By backing a decision to completely bypass the 2027 Grammys, J-Hope isn't walking away from a challenge. He's making a heroic, legendary statement that BTS's artistry belongs on their own massive stages, on their own terms, and for the people who actually value their craft. As the world eagerly watches BTS reclaim their crown in 2026 and look toward 2027, J-Hope's defiant stance leaves us with a mind-bending question. When the world's absolute greatest live performer decides that Hollywood's biggest stage simply isn't worthy of his dance shoes anymore, who really loses the magic of the night?
Number 3. Jimin, the main dancer's dazzling defiance against the Western formula. When you turn the spotlight onto Park Jimin, the mesmerizing main dancer and lead vocalist of BTS, you aren't just looking at a pop star, you are witnessing a transcendent artistic force who completely rewrites the rules of gender, performance, and global chart domination. To truly understand why Jimin's current mindset could be the explosive catalyst behind BTS completely rejecting the 2027 Grammy Awards, you have to look at the staggering, history-making achievements he racked up while entirely removed from the traditional Western promotional machine. Let's rewind to June 11, 2025, a day etched into ARMY history when Jimin, alongside his absolute best friend Jungkook, officially stepped out of his military uniform after completing 18 grueling months as an active-duty soldier in the 5th Infantry Division in Yancheon. As he saluted the crowd of fans who had traveled from as far as Mexico and Brazil, a completely new, razor-sharp aura surrounded him. Jimin had just spent nearly 2 years away from the cameras, yet his music had never stopped breaking global records. While Jimin was serving his country, his second solo masterpiece, Muse, and its inescapable retro-infused title track, Who, released in July 2024, achieved things that entire Western labels spend tens of millions of dollars trying to orchestrate. Without him ever stepping foot in an American radio station, filming a single late-night talk show interview, or attending an exclusive Los Angeles industry party, Who became an absolute chart monster. It debuted at a staggering number 14 on the fiercely competitive Billboard Hot 100 and spent an astonishing 33 weeks on the chart, eventually securing the number 57 spot on the elite Billboard year-end Hot 100 for 2025. Even more incredibly, on the Billboard Global ex-US chart, Who charted for a mind-bending 88 weeks, officially becoming the longest-charting K-pop solo track in history, surpassing his own previous magnum opus Like Crazy, which sat in second place. He literally beat his own historical record while wearing combat boots. Now picture Jimin sitting in the HYBE boardroom in mid-2026 as the group maps out their monumental reunion era. He looks at his own unparalleled solo success, built entirely on pure fan consumption, organic streaming, and undeniable musical quality. He remembers the bitter sting of past Grammy cycles, where his breathtaking contemporary dance solos and flawless vocal agility were routinely ignored by an academy that consistently favored traditional Western pop acts, despite BTS continually carrying the broadcast's social media relevance on their backs. Jimin knows that his art, which seamlessly blends traditional Korean dance elements with cutting-edge global pop, is often fundamentally misunderstood by an aging voting demographic that views K-pop as a manufactured trend rather than a complex, high art form. For Jimin, the idea of sacrificing the creative freedom and profound emotional depth of BTS's triumphant 2026 comeback album just to craft a safe, radio-friendly Grammy bait single in 2027 feels like a massive step backwards. He recognizes the absolute absurdity of the situation. Why should an artist who can hold the Billboard charts in a chokehold for over a year and a half, entirely on his own merit without a drop of Western payola, suddenly bow his head and ask for a golden gramophone to validate his worth? His stance is a dazzling, unapologetic defiance of the outdated Western formula. By joining the movement to reject the 2027 Grammys, Jimin is essentially telling the Recording Academy that his stage is the entire world, and his true validation comes from the millions of fans whose lives he changes every single day, not a committee that only pays attention when it serves their own broadcast ratings. As the whispers of this historic boycott grow louder, one question hangs heavy in the air.
If an artist can rewrite Billboard history without ever leaving his military base, why on earth would he ever need a Grammy? Number 2. V. The Jazz Prince's aesthetic rejection of industry formulas. When you turn your gaze to Kim Tae-young, the deep-voiced, jazz-loving, wildly charismatic visual and vocalist of BTS known as V, you're looking at an artist who operates on a completely different wavelength than the rest of the pop music industry. To understand why Tae-young might quietly but firmly back BTS's potential rejection of the 2027 Grammy Awards, you have to look at the beautifully unique, incredibly successful, and totally uncompromising solo path he forged before his military enlistment, and the quiet clarity he gained during his service. On June 10, 2025, Tae-young officially stepped out of his military uniform, having served in the grueling Elite Special Duty Team, SDT, greeted by the media and a saxophone performance alongside his leader, RM. But even while he was away, undergoing intense tactical training and fading from the daily public eye, the artistic legacy he left behind spoke volumes about his true priorities. Let's rewind to the release of his breathtaking debut solo EP, Layover, in September 2023. While most pop stars of his magnitude would have chased a high-energy, radio-friendly club banger or a massive English pop anthem to secure Grammy attention, Tae-young went in the complete opposite direction. He collaborated with Min Hee-jin, the visionary behind New Jeans, to craft a 6-track masterpiece rooted in 1970s romantic soul, lo-fi R&B, and smooth jazz. Tracks like Slow Dancing, Rainy Days, and Love Me Again weren't designed for stadium fireworks or aggressive Billboard chart manipulation. They were designed for quiet, rainy mornings, solitary drives, and deep, nostalgic introspection. He prioritized aesthetic purity, genuine emotion, and his love for vintage art over commercial formulas. Tae-young has always been a quiet rebel against the exhausting machinery of global superstardom. He is an artist who genuinely prefers wandering through art museums in Paris, listening to vinyl records, and taking film photographs over walking high-stress red carpets. When you look at BTS's past experiences at the Grammys, you can see how deeply out of place Tae-young's artistic soul must have felt within that highly politicized, transactional environment. He witnessed the Recording Academy use his stunning visuals, viral interactions, remember the iconic Olivia Rodrigo whisper, and sheer star power to drive their social media engagement into the stratosphere, only to consistently snub the group's actual musical output when the awards were handed out. He saw the stark contrast between the warm, genuine love he receives from millions of fans worldwide and the cold, calculated use of BTS's image by the Western establishment. Fast forward to 2026, as BTS executes their legendary, record-shattering reunion tour, dominating stadiums globally, V is sitting in strategy meetings with a newfound perspective forged by his rigorous time in the SDT. He knows that his time is precious, his art is valid, and his bond with ARMY is the only metric of success that truly matters. Why should he, an artist who achieved massive critical and commercial success with a jazz-infused passion project like Layover without bowing to Western expectations, suddenly pivot to chasing a Grammy in 2027? Why endure the exhausting, artificial circus of For Your Consideration campaigns and industry schmoozing when he could be creating pure art, spending time with his beloved dog Yeon, or connecting directly with the fans who actually understand his soul? By potentially supporting a complete rejection of the 2027 Grammys, V is making a profound aesthetic and personal statement. He is saying that true luxury in the music industry isn't a gold trophy, it's the absolute freedom to create whatever you want whenever you want without needing permission from a room of out-of-touch executives. His defiance isn't loud or aggressive, it is smooth, cool, and undeniably powerful, much like his music. It leaves the world wondering when the most captivating visual and soulful voice in global pop decides the Grammys are simply too artificial for his taste. Doesn't the institution instantly lose its luster?
Number 1. Jungkook, the Golden Maknae's complete solo domination, making Hollywood irrelevant. When you finally arrive at Jungkook, the extraordinarily gifted main vocalist, lead dancer, and indisputable Golden Maknae of BTS, you are witnessing the absolute apex of global pop supremacy. To truly grasp why Jungkook's position is the final, devastating blow in BTS's potential rejection of the 2027 Grammy Awards, you have to look at the sheer, unparalleled magnitude of his solo success prior to his enlistment and the earth-shattering reality he returned to upon his discharge. When Jungkook officially completed his military service on June 11, 2025, walking out alongside his closest friend Jimin, he wasn't just a returning idol, he was a global conqueror who had already proven that he didn't need the traditional Western establishment to bend the music world to his will. Let's rewind to the volcanic explosion of his solo debut with Seven in July 2023. The achievements of this single aren't just impressive, they are completely historical anomalies that rewrote the rulebook of what a non-Western artist can accomplish. Seven didn't just chart, it debuted at the absolute pinnacle, number 1 on the fiercely competitive Billboard Hot 100. But it didn't stop there. Jungkook simultaneously conquered the Billboard Global 200 and the global exclusive US charts, proving that his dominance wasn't an isolated regional phenomenon, but a true, borderless global takeover. He shattered streaming records on Spotify, turning Seven into an unstoppable juggernaut that racked up over 1 billion streams at an unprecedented, dizzying speed. He achieved all of this while remaining completely authentic to his own style, blending smooth R&B with infectious UK garage beats and collaborating with Lotto to create a track that felt both universally appealing and undeniably Jungkook. For years, the youngest member of BTS had watched from the sidelines as the Recording Academy repeatedly dangled the Grammy carrot in front of his older brothers, only to snatch it away at the final moment. He saw the Academy exploit their massive global fan base for television ratings, while stubbornly refusing to acknowledge the group's self-produced, groundbreaking discography. Jungkook, who has always been fiercely loyal to his group and deeply protective of their legacy, understands the agonizing sting of those snubs better than anyone. He knows the sheer physical toll of preparing for those legendary Grammy performances, the endless rehearsals, the pressure to prove their worth to a skeptical Western audience, the exhaustion of navigating a system stacked against them. Now, as BTS embarks on their monumental, history-making OT7 reunion tour in 2026, Jungkook holds a completely different hand of cards. He is a proven solo Billboard Hot 100 #1 artist. He has tasted the absolute peak of commercial and critical success entirely on his own terms. Why on earth would he, the most streamed K-pop soloist in history, ever need a Grammy to validate his worth? What could a gold-plated trophy possibly offer him that he hasn't already earned through sheer talent, relentless hard work, and the unwavering devotion of millions of armies? In high-level strategic discussions for 2027, Jungkook's voice, often quiet but carrying immense weight, echoes a sentiment of absolute self-assuredness. He represents the ultimate realization that BTS has simply outgrown the need for external validation. By joining the movement to bypass the Grammys, Jungkook isn't acting out of resentment. He is making a calm, calculated, and terrifyingly powerful statement. He is declaring that he and his 6 brothers are the ones who define their own legacy.
The global music industry isn't defined by a select group of voters in Los Angeles anymore. It's defined by the artists who can legitimately command the attention of the entire planet. And when the golden maknae decides that the biggest stage in Hollywood is no longer worth his time, the entire world has no choice but to stop and listen. This isn't just a rejection, it's a coronation of BTS as an untouchable empire, ruling a kingdom entirely of their own making.